I didn't go looking for proof. Not that day. It was just a regular Tuesday. Early spring. Still cold enough in the mornings that the windows fogged up, but warm enough that the birds outside were acting like it was already May. Amy had left for work a little after 7 a.m. Same as always, rushing out the door in a cloud of perfume and dry shampoo, muttering something about back-to-back meetings. I had taken the day off. I told her it was because I needed a break from work, but really, I was just tired. Tired of feeling like I was always one step behind her. Like I was missing something important, but couldn't put my finger on it. We hadn't been right for a while. That much was obvious. But when you're married, especially for years, you learn to write off the weird little shifts. A cold tone here, a missed kiss goodbye there. You start telling yourself, she's just stressed, or it's just a phase, or the classic. We'll talk about it when things calm down. But things never calmed down. They just changed. That morning, I decided I'd finally clean out her SUV. It had been sitting in the garage since Saturday, dirty from our half-aborted trip to the farmer's market. She'd gotten a work call halfway there and asked if we could just go home. She spent the rest of the afternoon locked in her office with the door closed. I made lunch for myself. Ate alone. The car wasn't filthy, not really, just cluttered. Empty coffee cups, a gym bag she hadn't used in months, some scattered papers on the floor of the passenger side. I figured I'd do something helpful, something normal. Her bag was on the seat. Her usual leather tote, big enough to carry a laptop, wallet, maybe a sweater. It was half unzipped, lying there like it had been tossed in without a second thought. I wasn't snooping. That's the part one keep going back to. I wasn't digging through her things looking for answers. I just wanted to vacuum the seat and move the bag out of the way. That's when I saw it. A motel key card, white plastic with the faint blue logo of Tall Pines Lodge. No chip, just a barcode. Tucked into the side pocket like an afterthought. Caught the light just enough to catch my eye. My first thought wasn't even suspicion. I was just confused. We hadn't stayed at a motel. Not since a road trip 2 summers ago. And certainly not that one. Tall Pines Lodge is the kind of place people go when they don't want to be seen. It's off Route 9, surrounded by trees thick enough to hide it from the road. The kind of spot truckers and secret affairs pass through without leaving a trace. Next to the key card was a folded receipt. Cash transaction, dated last Thursday night. Snacks, bottled water, 1 room for the night. No name on it, just a timestamp and the lodge's header. And then, as I was reaching to zip the bag up, I saw something else. A dark red lipstick stain on the inside collar of her coat. I froze. Amy doesn't wear red lipstick. She's more of a neutral tones kind of woman, soft pinks, sheer gloss. I once bought her a red lipstick for our anniversary. She smiled, thanked me, tried it on, then wiped it off before we even left the house. Too bold, she said. Not me. And yet here it was. Deep crimson, smeared just enough to suggest closeness. A hug? A kiss? I stood there in the garage, still holding her coat, the key card weighing down my palm like a stone. I could hear the birds chirping outside, the faint hum of traffic in the distance. Everything around me stayed quiet, calm. But inside something ruptured. That night I confronted her. I waited until after dinner. She came home late, said the meeting ran over, something about a client's project going sideways. She barely touched her food, scrolling through her phone with that glazed over expression she always got when she was half listening. When I brought it up, the key card, the receipt, I expected guilt, shock, maybe even a confession. What I got was deflection. You went through my bag? She snapped, eyes wide, tone sharp. I blinked. I wasn't snooping. It was open in the car. I was cleaning. So you just happened to go through my things? I moved your bag to vacuum the seat. Amy. I didn't know. She cut me off with a bitter laugh. You know what? This isn't about the bag. This is about you needing to control everything. That stunned me. Control? Amy, you had a motel key and a cash receipt for a place we've never stayed at. You're not even going to explain? Her jaw tightened. I don't owe you an explanation for every little thing I do. I was traveling for work. You know I've been assigned regional clients. Sometimes I stay overnight. Sometimes I pay cash. Big deal. She said it with such conviction, like I was the crazy one. Like this wasn't a huge red flag waving in my face. Then why not just tell me that? I asked. Why hide it? I'm not hiding anything, she said, voice rising. But I also don't need to report my every move to you. What should I ask permission to go to the bathroom now? You're twisting this, I said, trying to stay calm. I just want the truth. I'm sick of being interrogated, she snapped, standing up and grabbing her phone. You've been doing this for months. The passive-aggressive comments. The side eyes when I get a message. You think I haven't noticed? You don't trust me. I sat there stunned. The motel key. The cash receipts. The locked glove compartment. The second phone I'd seen her grab from her gym bag one night, claiming it was for work testing. The sudden evening meetings. The way she always smelled like cologne when she came home late. Not hers, not mine. A sharp, masculine scent I didn't recognize. I started to speak, to ask again, gently, about the keycard. But she was already walking away. I'm not doing this tonight, she said over her shoulder. You want to play detective, go ahead. But don't expect me to participate in your jealousy games. She slammed the bedroom door. I didn't follow her. I sat there on the couch, staring at the leftover food on my plate, the silence thick around me. 1,000 thoughts ran through my head, none of them clear. I felt like I was trying to put together a puzzle with half the pieces missing, except every new piece I found made the picture worse. After that night, things didn't improve. Amy didn't apologize. She didn't bring it up again. In fact, she acted like nothing happened. The next morning, she kissed me on the cheek, said, "Have a good day," and left like everything was normal. But it wasn't. And the more I thought about it, the more the signs began to stack up. After that night, I tried to let it go. I really did. For a few days, I convinced myself maybe she was telling the truth, or close enough to it. Maybe the motel was a last-minute layover during a chaotic work trip. Maybe she paid in cash to avoid the headache of reimbursement reports. Maybe the lipstick wasn't what it looked like. Maybe I was the problem. That thought kept circling me like a buzzard. The idea that I was paranoid, obsessive, unable to let go. That I'd turned into the jealous husband who couldn't trust his own wife. The very accusation Amy had hurled at me echoed constantly in my head. You're too controlling. You don't trust me. But when trust gets shaken, it doesn't just repair itself with time. It becomes a game of connect the dots, even when you don't want to see the image that's forming. And the dots were everywhere. Started small. Geolocation, the Find My feature we used to keep turned on for convenience, suddenly stopped working on her phone. I noticed one evening when I tried to see if she was on her way home so I could start dinner. Location not available. The screen read. I asked her about it. She shrugged it off. Must have been a glitch. Or maybe I turned it off by accident, she said, scrolling through her phone without looking at me. It didn't come back on. Then there were the late meetings, not once or twice, but weekly. Always on Thursdays. She started dressing nicer on those nights. Not unreasonably so, but enough for me to notice. The black blouse she used to save for date nights. Subtle makeup she normally didn't wear to work. Perfume. That same scent every time, subtle, floral, expensive. The kind you spray before you see someone you want to impress. Then came the cash withdrawals. Amy never used cash. We both used our cards for everything: groceries, gas, takeout. I handled the finances, and I'd never seen her pull out more than $20 a month. But suddenly there were frequent ATM withdrawals, small amounts, $60 here, $80 there, spread across different banks. When I brought it up, she was defensive. What? I can't take out my own money now? It's just not like you, I said carefully. Is something going on? Are you in trouble? She stared at me like I was a stranger. Jesus, Owen. You're really making a thing out of this? That night I couldn't sleep. I sat in the living room with the glow of the TV flickering across the walls. But I wasn't watching anything. I was thinking about that second phone, the one I'd seen once, months earlier, when she thought I wasn't looking. She'd pulled it from the inside pocket of her coat, checked the screen quickly, then shoved it back in without a word. I never saw it again, but I couldn't forget it. The glove compartment in her SUV was now always locked. We used to keep napkins and gum in there, maybe the car manual. There was never any need to lock it. And yet, the last time I'd reached for it, thinking there might be a flashlight or tissues inside, she'd snatched the keys from me with a startled, "Don't. I've got personal stuff in there." I didn't argue, but I never forgot that look on her face. Panic, not annoyance, not privacy, fear. The dashcam was another red flag. We'd installed it ourselves 2 years ago after a minor fender bender. Nothing fancy, but it uploaded automatically and stored a rolling 72 hours of footage. One day, out of curiosity more than suspicion, I logged into the cloud account to check her recent drives. A full 16 hours of footage were missing, completely erased, just gone. I sat there staring at the timestamp gap like it was a hole in the universe. That entire window. It aligned perfectly with her supposed overnight regional trip the week she came home wearing a different coat and smelling faintly like cologne. When I asked about the footage, she said, "Oh yeah, I tried to mess with the settings. Maybe I deleted something by accident." Accident. Everything was always an accident. But it wasn't. I knew that now. Her driver's seat was another clue. It was always reclined farther back than she preferred. Not by much, but noticeably. Amy's short and she always kept the seat close to the wheel, upright, alert. Lately, it looked like someone else had been driving, someone taller. Maybe someone used to spreading out. When I adjusted it back one morning, she tensed up. "Don't mess with my seat," she snapped. "You changed it anyway," I replied. She didn't answer. The playlists were the final push. I'd logged into her music account one night to find our shared driving playlist, the one we'd made years ago, filled with indie rock and road trip classics. Instead, I saw 3 new playlists titled with emojis: Cigarette Crescent Moon, Evergreen Tree Cloud with Rain, and Kiss Mark Fire, all filled with music I'd never heard before. Slow, sensual, cryptic stuff. Songs with lyrics about sneaking away, burning secrets, midnight rendezvous. I listened for 15 seconds before my stomach turned. I didn't ask her about those. I already knew the answer. Still, without concrete proof, I told myself I could be wrong. That I wanted to be wrong. That maybe this was all just my insecurity getting the better of me. Then came the cameras. I checked the feed out of desperation. We had a few old trail cams mounted by the front of the house and garage. Relics of when Amy was going through a true crime phase and wanted to catch prowlers, even though we lived in a quiet cul-de-sac. One night, half drunk and fully consumed by dread, I reviewed footage from the past few weeks. There she was, Amy, at 9:12 p.m. Last Thursday night, the night she told me she was at a client dinner, pulling into the driveway in her SUV. She got out, looked around, then pulled a small overnight bag from the back seat. And she wasn't alone. A tall blonde man stepped out from the passenger side. Lean, well-dressed. He walked casually, confidently, like he belonged there. Together, they disappeared around the side of the house, toward the backyard. But that wasn't the worst part. 3 hours later, at 12:41 a.m., the cameras caught them again, this time pulling away from our driveway together. They drove off in silence, taillights blinking, her hand briefly resting on his arm as he backed out. Couldn't breathe. I sat there staring at the footage, willing myself to find another explanation. Maybe he was a colleague. Maybe something had gone wrong, and this was all innocent. But when I checked the Tall Pines Lodge's front desk records the next day, pretending to be a confused husband picking up his wife's forgotten sunglasses, the desk clerk didn't even blink. Room 6B. 1 queen bed. 1 receipt. Signed in Amy's handwriting. It was dated 2 nights before the footage. That same night, she said she was crashing at a coworker's after too much wine. I drove home in a fog. Numb. Empty. That night, as she slept, I quietly pulled open her jewelry drawer. I don't know what I was looking for. A sign. A clue. Something. Instead, I found a small velvet pouch, shoved into the corner under an old scarf. Inside was a silver bracelet still tagged, from the same boutique in town that was listed in her expenses 2 weeks ago. She told me she was buying a gift for her cousin's birthday. Amy doesn't have a cousin. Amy died 5 months ago. At least that's what the report said. The official cause: a head-on collision with a transport truck somewhere just outside of Bedford. She was declared dead at the scene. The vehicle was totaled, her SUV wrapped around the front axle, unrecognizable except for the license plate and a few personal belongings recovered from the wreckage. There was no open casket. The coroner said it wouldn't have been appropriate. Her parents didn't argue. Neither did I. The funeral was quiet. Too quiet. A few co-workers. Her mother sobbing into tissues. Her father, blank-faced and stiff like a mannequin. I stood there the entire time feeling like I was living in someone else's nightmare. People kept coming up to me and saying how sorry they were, how unfair life could be, how beautiful she was, how strong I was for holding it together. But I wasn't strong. I was broken. And underneath the grief, there was something else I couldn't admit out loud. Not even to myself. Relief. Because whatever secrets Amy had been keeping, whoever she was with, whatever double life she was living, it had ended with her. There were no more lies. No more Thursday night meetings. No more lipstick that didn't belong to her. No more vague excuses or side glances or silences stretched thin. Just a car, a crash, a body, and a death certificate. But 5 months later, that piece shattered. I was cleaning out the garage. Not for any noble reason, just because I needed to do something. I'd been living in a fog, barely able to get through the days. Friends stopped calling. My parents stopped asking if I was okay. I stopped pretending. I'd been putting off selling Amy's SUV, the one she'd been driving that night. It had been towed home weeks after the crash, salvaged enough to be moved, but I couldn't bring myself to touch it. Until that morning. It was time. I unlocked the door, climbed inside, and started clearing out the glove compartment. Napkins. Expired insurance. A parking pass for a garage I didn't recognize. And then, behind the manual, wedged so far and I almost missed it, was an envelope. Yellowed slightly, taped shut. On the front, written in blocky, all-caps handwriting. Confess. Just that word. Nothing else. No address. No date. I sat in the front seat for a long time, holding it. My heart thudded in my ears. Finally, I broke the seal. Inside was a USB drive and a folded piece of paper. The paper was blank on one side. On the other, a date. A single line. Dashcam. 2 days after cremation. My skin went cold. I climbed out, went inside, and plugged the USB into my laptop with trembling fingers. There was only one file. A dashcam video. It opened with the usual date and timestamp, taken from what looked like Amy's SUV dashboard. Except it couldn't be. She had been dead. We had scattered her ashes by the lake. I'd watched them drift away like smoke in water. The footage showed the same stretch of highway where the crash happened. Same pine trees. Same faded lane markers. But this wasn't a crash. This was calm. Steady. A smooth ride. The SUV turned off onto a side road I didn't recognize. It pulled into a gas station, parked for several minutes, then continued down another road, narrower, tree-lined. Eventually, it reached a motel. Not Tall Pines Lodge this time. A different one, Larkspur Inn. The car parked. The footage ended. I didn't know what I was looking for. Maybe I was losing my mind. Maybe this was a joke, some cruel prank, or worse, some kind of psychological breakdown brought on by grief. But then I did what any haunted man would do. I drove there. The gas station was real. So was the road. And so was Larkspur Inn. A tired old building tucked into the woods with peeling paint and flickering lights. I walked into the front office, hands clammy. The woman at the desk barely looked up. "Need a room?" "No," I said. "I'm looking for someone who might have stayed here 5 months ago." She shrugged. "Check the guest log. Old ones are in the binder." She slid a heavy leather book across the counter. I flipped to the date. Halfway down the page, I found it. Room 4C. Cash payment. No ID. The name used? Annabelle Lee. That's not Amy's name. Not even close. But I recognized the handwriting. Her exact loops on the lowercase l. The way she curved her A like a tent. I asked if the room was occupied. The clerk checked. Just cleaned it this morning. Empty now. She handed me the key. Inside, the room was plain. Bed, TV, mirror, nightstand. But the bedspread was still warm. The air smelled faintly like her perfume. In the trash were 2 empty coffee cups and a napkin smeared with lipstick. The same shade as the one on her coat. I opened the closet. Inside was a jacket. Mine. Old, worn down. I hadn't seen it in over a year. Suddenly, everything in my chest went still. Amy wasn't dead. She was hiding. Amy was alive. That realization didn't hit like a thunderclap. It was slower, deeper. It bloomed inside me like cold fire, spreading from my spine to my fingertips in waves. She hadn't died. The crash was a lie. The funeral, the cremation, the sobbing eulogies, all of it a carefully built performance. And I had been the audience. Willing, blind, applauding the illusion because the alternative was too insane to believe. Now I had evidence. The dashcam footage, the motel guest log, the coat in the closet. My jacket. Hers. 2 coffees. A napkin kissed red. All of it proof that Amy or Annabelle Lee, whoever she was now, had staged everything. And she'd involved me somehow. Whether as a puppet, a pawn, or a partner, I didn't know. But I had questions. I had so many questions. And something in my gut told me I wasn't far from the answers. I returned to the SUV later that night, retracing the events with clearer eyes. If Amy had left that envelope, she must have known I'd find it eventually. Maybe she counted on me selling the car. Or maybe she was hoping I'd remember. Because here's the thing. I'd started dreaming of her. Not the way she was before the lies, but during. Dream Amy wasn't loving or remorseful. She was sharp-eyed, focused. She'd whisper fragments, coordinates, places, dates. I thought I was losing it. But now I started listening. And something shifted. I remembered a conversation. Not a recent one, an old one. Buried. Something about a cabin in the woods. Not far from a lake we used to visit before everything got messy. We'd called it our sanctuary. Place where no one could reach us. Just trees, silence, and the illusion of escape. We never bought the cabin. Not officially. But we'd looked at one. I still had the address. The next morning I drove north. Through 3 counties, past 2 roadside diners, and along a trail that barely qualified as a road. Every mile deeper into the forest twisted the knot in my chest tighter. By the time I pulled up to the clearing, I wasn't even sure I was breathing. And there it was, the cabin, just like I remembered it. Cedar siding, a sagging porch, and a crooked weather vane spinning lazily in the breeze. But the strange part wasn't the building. It was the vehicle parked beside it. Her SUV. The same make, model, and year. Identical. Down to the cracked rear tail light and the small dent on the passenger side door. The one she got after backing into a mailbox in 21. The license plate was different, but the body told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't coincidence. It was a copy. I approached cautiously. The windows were fogged from the inside. There was no sound but the whisper of wind through the trees. Inside the cabin, the first thing I saw was photos. Dozens of them. Clipped to string, pinned to corkboard, stacked in boxes. Some were of us. Me and Amy on a beach. Me and Amy at the lake. Me and Amy laughing in a grocery store aisle. Others were more recent. Me alone. At the funeral. In the driveway. Sitting at my desk. Unaware I was being watched. Someone had been following me. She had. I turned slowly, dread rising in my throat. On the table sat a notebook, filled with block letters. If you're reading this, you're ready. You wanted the truth. You already had it, you just didn't want to carry it. We made a deal. You said yes. Beside the notebook was a recorder. Old school, tape style. My hand trembled as I pressed play. And then, I heard my own voice. We have to disappear, Amy. There's no other way. If we stay, they'll find us. The only sh*t we have is to bury everything. Even our memories. I'm ready to forget. I'll wipe what I have to. Just leave me a trail back if it works. If it doesn't, I was never here. The voice was mine. Flat. Serious. No fear. Just resolve. The tape stopped. I sank into the nearest chair, stunned. I had said those words. I had agreed. But to what? Part of me knew. The dreams weren't dreams. The holes in my memory weren't natural. Something had been taken. Deliberately. Willingly. I had agreed to forget. That's why none of it made sense until now. The scattered paranoia. The twisted feelings of betrayal. The gaps in time I kept writing off as stress. It had all been orchestrated. By us. I stumbled outside, desperate for air. My reflection in the SUV's mirror looked older, wearier. A man halfway between heartbreak and madness. And then I noticed something glinting in the second vehicle's cup holder. A USB drive. I took it inside, plugged it into the cabin's old laptop, fingers barely functioning. One file, Amy_final, MP4-inch. I clicked play, and there she was, Amy, hair tied back, no makeup, her eyes glassy with emotion but calm, so calm. She looked right into the lens. If you're watching this, Owen, I guess something came back. You remembered enough to find the cabin. Or maybe you followed the trail we left. Either way, I'm glad. You agreed to this. All of it. The affair was staged. The crash was staged. Even your grief, that was part of it. We needed them to believe it. We were being watched. Tracked. I don't know by who, not exactly, but we intercepted enough to know they were closing in. We had two choices, run or disappear. You said you'd rather forget than live looking over your shoulder. You didn't want to carry the weight. So we hired someone to erase the surface memories. Not everything, just enough. I told you I'd leave markers, that if it worked, you'd feel free. But if it failed, you'd find your way back. She paused, breathing deeply. I'm still here, and I'm still waiting. Follow the water. Follow the sun. I'll meet you where the sky touches the lake. The screen went black. My lungs wouldn't fill. My heart beat out of rhythm. All this time, I'd been chasing a betrayal that wasn't real. I had been mourning a wife who hadn't left me. Not really. I had been angry at her for lying, when the truth was, we'd lied together. And now all I could think about was that phrase, where the sky touches the lake. I knew where she meant. A lookout spot we used to visit when we first started dating. Secluded, high above the waterline. She always said it felt like standing at the edge of the world. A place where, for a moment, everything felt simple. And now, maybe, just maybe, it would again. I drove through the night. The sun hadn't yet broken the horizon, but the sky was beginning to bleach, the dark slowly peeling away, like the world was waking up piece by piece. My hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than necessary. I didn't feel tired. I didn't feel awake either. Just pulled like a thread in my chest had been quietly tugging this whole time, and now I was finally following it. I hadn't been to the Overlook in years. It used to be ours. A secret we kept from everyone. It wasn't on any tourist map, just a narrow trail off a back road that curved up the hillside behind Lake Kessler. You couldn't see it from the highway. Even if you knew the area, you had to know exactly where to turn. But I remembered. The tires crunched against the gravel as I pulled off the main road. I parked halfway up, at the clearing before the slope grew too steep. From here, it was all on foot. My boots sunk into the earth, still soft from last night's rain. The air smelled like pine and dew and something else, memory maybe. Each step up the hill felt heavier, like the past itself was anchoring me. Trees I had forgotten lined the path like old friends. I passed the mossy log we'd once carved our initials into, though the bark had long since grown over it. And then I saw it. The lake below, glass still, stretching toward the horizon in every direction. A silver-blue sheet reflecting the slow rise of morning light. The edge of the world, just like Amy had called it. I stood at the ridge, letting the cold wind bite at my skin. My breath came in clouds. My heart oddly was steady. And then I heard a voice. Soft. Familiar. You found me. I turned. She stood 10 feet away, framed by the light like something out of a dream. Amy. Alive. Real. Not a memory. Not a ghost. Not a trick of grief. Just her. Hair pulled into a loose braid. wearing that old gray sweater she always said was too ugly to throw out. Her eyes looked tired, wiser, but they were hers. Green, alive, unflinching. I didn't move, couldn't. Every part of me wanted to run to her, grab her, hold her, ask 100 questions at once, but I stayed frozen. She took a step forward, then another. "You remembered more than I thought you would?" she said, voice barely louder than the wind. I tried to speak, but my throat caught. She smiled gently like she knew. "I wasn't sure if it would work," she went on. "The memory wipe, the trail, the videos. I told myself if you got here, it meant enough of you was still in there." Finally, I spoke. "Why?" That one word. My voice rough, raw, held everything inside it. Why the lies, the stage death, the erased memories, the motel, the crash? Why all of it? Amy didn't flinch. "Because they were watching," she said. "Not just us. Everyone tied to that case." "What case?" She hesitated, looked away. Her voice dipped lower. "You told me not to explain everything. Said it would be easier that way. Safer." "Safer for who?" I asked. "You? Me? Or the people chasing us?" Amy met my gaze again. "All of the above." She sat on the rock wall overlooking the water, her hands folded in her lap. I didn't join her right away. I stood back, heart hammering as pieces of memory ticked louder in my head. There was a case, something about her work, an investigation she wasn't supposed to be a part of. A whistleblower. I remembered whispers about internal corruption, not just in her company, but something bigger, something federal. We had stumbled into something. No, we had been pulled into it. "You said you'd rather forget than run," she said softly. "You said you'd rather lose pieces of yourself than live in fear. So we buried it. Buried me. I told you I'd vanish, let you believe it. Just long enough for the trail to go cold." I felt like I was standing in two realities at once. The man who mourned his wife, and the man who helped her disappear. "Then why leave the trail?" I asked. "Why not just let me forget for good?" Amy didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice was a whisper. "Because I couldn't lose you, Owen. Not forever." That broke something in me. I finally sat beside her. We stared out at the lake. The light had shifted, painting the water gold. "We were partners in this," she said. "We planned it together. You insisted we stage it as betrayal. Said it'd keep anyone from looking deeper. If I just died, people would dig. If I cheated, they'd turn away." My stomach turned. It made sense in the most devastating way. I asked, "Did anyone follow you here?" She shook her head. "No one's seen me in months. I switched vehicles. Burned the other. Used the fake SUV to leave behind scraps. All the stuff I planted. It was meant to stir doubt, not truth. I figured if you ever got close again, you'd start asking real questions. The red lipstick. The second phone. The motel. The missing footage. Everything had been part of a script. And I had believed it. Played my part so convincingly, I almost destroyed myself in the process. "I hated you," I whispered. "For months. I thought you'd ruined everything we built." Amy didn't flinch. "I know. I hated myself for letting you." I turned to her. "And now what?" Her eyes welled slightly, but she blinked it back. "Now we choose again. You can leave. Go back. Let the past stay buried. Or..." She reached into her coat pocket and held something out. A key. "We start over. Somewhere they'll never find us. But this time, no wipes. No lies. Just us." I stared at it. The key glinted in the light. Behind us, the world we'd left burned quietly in the rear view. Ahead of us, nothing but trees, water, and a horizon too bright to look at directly. And for the first time in what felt like years, I breathed. We left everything behind, names, phones, past lives. I took the key, and with it, the truth. Amy and I disappeared into the world like smoke and wind. The memory wipe had worked, but the soul remembers what the mind forgets. Trust rebuilt slowly. Love even slower. But every sunrise at the lake, with no lies between us, felt like a second chance neither of us deserved, but both needed. Months passed. Peace settled. But sometimes, I'd catch her staring at the treeline, too still. We never spoke of the ones watching. But I knew we hadn't outrun them, just bought time. One morning, I found another envelope. No return address, just remember, scrawled across it. Amy saw it too. Said nothing. We both knew the past wasn't done with us. We didn't vanish. We just hit pause.